And thank you for that praise and worship Sunday. That was really lovely. And I actually, one point I really wanted to get across was just how great our God is, and just how forgiving and wonderful he is, and how he does answer our prayers. I was brought up in a church environment, and yet it wasn't until I was in my 30s and I met Stuart Cripps at work, and he invited us along, my husband and I, along to an FGB dinner with some of these wonderful people on this call. And I heard somebody's testimony, and it really spoke into my heart. And to be honest, I thought, well, hang on a minute, it freaked me out a bit. There were people that had been prayed for that fell down by my seat, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And I just wanted to get out of that room. It affected me. Well, to me at the time, it didn't feel like it was in a good way, because it really spoke to my heart, stuff that had gone on in my life. And when Stuart asked us if we'd go to another dinner, I really didn't want to go, and it took a month of both my husband and Stuart convincing me that it was the right thing to do, and it was. And in fairness, it really was. And I said that prayer that night, a very simple prayer where I just asked for my sins to be forgiven. And when I was in my teens, I basically turned my back on the hypocrisy of the church. I continued the hypocrisy of religion within the church. I continued to believe in God. I continued to pray, and in hindsight, I can see all the ways in which the Lord helped and guided me through some pretty terrible times. But when I gave my life to the Lord, I suddenly realized that it was real, it was tangible. I knew God was real, but I knew that my prayers were being answered. And a circumstance happened where my husband became very, very ill. And I took him to hospital. He was treated, and they basically said they couldn't do anything more for him. And they sent me home, and I had to leave him there under those circumstances and conditions. And I cried out to God. And to be fair, I was really angry with God that, lots of things had happened in my life and in the way I saw things. Everybody I cared for, I was losing, and then to start to lose my husband as well was just like, whoa, hang on, what's going on here? And it was New Year's Eve, and by that time it was New Year's Day, and suddenly the phones started going off, and I automatically picked it up thinking, oh my goodness, it's the hospital, he's had it, basically. And it wasn't. It was lots of people wishing me a happy new year, but I wasn't thinking that way. And I rang the hospital, and they told me that he was sleeping peacefully and everything was hunky-dory. And you know what? I knew at that point, I had such a peace come upon me. I knew that God had answered my prayers. I wasn't in any doubt, and he came home to tell the tale. Now, 3 times I've been through that with my husband, and after I gave my life to the Lord, I knew I could call on my FGB brothers here, and Dave and Stuart and others came into the hospital and prayed for him then when they had written him off. And we literally saw the monitors, they said they couldn't do anything for him, and the monitors were all going a bit crazy. And every time the guys started praying, the monitors leveled out and everything started to settle down. And the doctor actually came to us and said, I don't know what you're doing, but carry on, because it's working and there's nothing we can do. And sure enough, he's still here to tell the tale. I've seen some amazing answers to prayer. I've had people come up to me, I haven't given testimony like this. I've seen little old ladies bent over double, couldn't stand straight, and just literally uncurl and stand up straight and just give me such a great hug, because they hadn't been able to do so for years. There was a guy in Cardiff where we prayed for this guy whose hands were just crippled. He couldn't hold a knife and fork. His hands were so crippled with arthritis, and they just uncurled. And Frank and I just stood there going, wow, because we hadn't seen anything like it ourselves. It was incredible. But it wasn't only those amazing healing gifts that the Lord gave us, but something really key to me was the fact that it wasn't just that the Lord forgave me my sins and helped heal a broken heart for stuff that had gone in the past, but he had helped me to forgive the people that had hurt me so badly in my past in a way that I never thought was possible. And don't get me wrong, I still wouldn't want to be in the same room as those individuals, but I have forgiven them, and I have such a peace about that forgiveness, and that I would never want to wish any harm on them. But by the same token, as I said, I wouldn't put myself at risk and sit in that situation with them. But that forgiveness is so important, that it eats up inside you and you don't realize it until you just let it go. And I just had to give it all to God. And I just felt such a relief when I did that. But in doing so, when I did see that the individual, I was no longer scared of them. I was no longer intimidated or trapped by them. I just had such a peace about the whole situation. I knew God was in control, and there was never any doubts, and still never any doubt that God is with us through every situation, and he answers those prayers. We might not always see the answer to prayer in the way that we would like or the way that we would expect, but you can look a year or two further down the line and go, do you know what? The Lord answered that prayer in a better way than I'd anticipated so often. But even in the little things, he's there with us. I remember taking Frank for a surgical procedure in a hospital, and we were in there quite a long time before they took him down. And I'd agreed that I would work from the hospital whilst he was down having surgery. And I've got to admit, I love a cup of tea. And I went down to the car to get my laptop and everything. I knew I was going to be down in surgery for an hour or so. And I walked out, I was just like, oh Lord, I'd love a cup of tea. And I couldn't find anywhere in the hospital where I could get one. So I went to the car, got my laptop, went back to the room, and there on the table, and it was as simple a prayer as that, there on the table was a cup, a saucer, and a pot of tea. Now, how often do you see that in hospital? Oh, I was so grateful. You know, it was just something very simple, but the Lord knew my need at that time. And actually, if we stop and we look around us at just how much God provides us with, he's awesome. He knows all our needs at every point. And just don't be afraid to ask. You know, is your dad in heaven? He'll provide you with those things. You know, there's been times when I don't know, we've had major leak on the roof, and you know, we need to get this roof repaired. And there's only my income now because my husband's retired, and it's like, how are we going to pay for that? But whoa, somewhere out of nowhere, and I know it's God's provision, I got a bonus, and yet half of the company had been on furlough. So it's like, how does that work? But God knew exactly how much was needed, and you know, the provision is there. And that's happened so many times where we've kind of gone, oh, okay, that's going to cost us a bit, and just there's the provision. And it's like, wow, okay, Lord, thank you. I just want to say, just don't doubt. Just the simple things. Don't be afraid to pray. As I said, it might not always feel like your prayers is being answered, but you know what? God's got a plan and purpose for your life, and he's never going to let you down. And so that's my testimony, or a snippet of